Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into this incredibly subtle, but honestly super powerful trap that literally all of us fall into. And the crazy part, we usually do it without even realizing it's happening. We're going to look at how our own unchecked thoughts, those little mental narratives we spin, are actually causing us a tremendous amount of totally unnecessary emotional pain. Because, our experience of reality isn't just about what happens to us, it's heavily defined by the stories we tell ourselves about what happened. And when we let those stories just run wild, well, we end up manufacturing our own distress. So let's get right into it. Let's start with something I know we can all relate to. Have you ever sent a text to a friend, or maybe your partner, and crickets? A few hours go by with just absolute silence, and suddenly your mind starts spiraling, right? You start wondering, wait, what did I do wrong? Or you just instantly jump to, wow, they really do not care. It's highly relatable, isn't it? This everyday scenario perfectly illustrates how incredibly fast our brains jump straight to the most negative conclusions whenever we're faced with just a tiny bit of silence, distance, or ambiguity. There is just this stark, massive contrast between raw, verifiable facts and the elaborate drama we cook up in our heads. Think about the actual facts of that scenario: a missed call, a brief text message, a quiet evening. On their own, those are entirely neutral events. But then we step in and introduce this emotional drama of what we assume happened just to fill in the blanks. And this is the core thesis of our explainer today. A huge portion of our human suffering doesn't actually stem from reality itself, but from this exact split. Our pain is literally coming from the fictional stories we so confidently invent about reality. So why do our brains do this so predictably? Well, author Don Miguel Ruiz hits the nail on the head. He notes that the mind quickly fills in what it does not know. Think about it. Human minds absolutely hate a vacuum. If there's missing information, we are practically incapable of just sitting patiently and waiting for the facts to roll in. Instead, we frantically fill in the blanks, usually to protect ourselves. We wrongly assume someone is mad at us, or they don't value our time, or they're just intentionally ignoring us to prove some kind of point. And man, this habit extends so deeply into our closest relationships too. We constantly fall into this trap of expecting the people who love us to just automatically know exactly what we need, without us ever actually saying it out loud. It's a really dangerous game to play. Holding on to these unexpressed expectations, that is a guaranteed setup for failure. It pretty much ensures we're going to feel hurt, rejected, or bitterly resentful when our loved ones inevitably fail to meet these complex needs that we kept entirely hidden from them in the first place. But the real danger here begins the exact moment we start treating our mental guesswork as absolute, undeniable reality. Like, it's one thing to just have a passing anxious thought, right? But it becomes a much deeper problem when we forget that we are the ones who wrote the script. The moment we start acting, reacting, and making major life decisions as if our totally unverified assumptions are hard facts, we are essentially locking ourselves into this endless cycle of unnecessary conflict and suffering. The fields of psychology and therapy actually have a very specific term for this destructive habit. Psychiatrist Aaron Beck, he's one of the main founders of cognitive therapy, identified this pattern as mind reading. It is a massive cognitive distortion. It's basically this tendency to confidently believe that we know exactly what another person is thinking or feeling without anywhere near enough evidence to actually back that up. This specific psychological distortion literally hijacks our logic, completely takes over, and replaces it with pure paranoia. And this distortion happens constantly in our everyday interactions. We'll see a simple data point. Say, a friend or your partner walks through the door with a visibly tired expression on their face. That's the raw reality, just fatigue. But our distorted mind reading instantly translates that exhaustion into a highly personalized attack. We think, oh, they're definitely upset with me. Or we take a super standard, mild disagreement over, dinner plans, and we twist it into this huge sign of fundamental disrespect. We're taking a neutral reality and just forcing a negative meaning right onto it. From there, this mental distortion quickly builds into a pretty severe cascade of suffering. First, the assumption firmly takes hold in our mind as the new truth. Second, our emotions kick in and start responding intensely. But they aren't responding to the actual truth of the situation. They're responding to the fictional, dramatic story we just created. And then finally, the outward result materializes. We become actively anxious, maybe angry, defensive, or totally emotionally distant. Our reactions are entirely driven by the meaning we assigned, completely detached from the other person's actual intent. So the big question is, how do we actually break out of this cycle? Well, ancient biblical wisdom offers a really powerful corrective pivot here. In the book of John, Jesus advises, "Do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment." This challenges us directly. It's asking us to elevate our perspective, demanding that we look way beyond our immediate, deeply flawed first impressions. We have to absolutely stop taking the surface appearance of any situation at face value. We've got to dig a whole lot deeper. Now, translating that ancient wisdom into a highly practical, modern discipline means we have to actively exercise that right judgment. What does that look like? Well, it requires us to step back and just pause before reacting to the sting of our own assumptions. We actually have to listen to the other person, deliberately seek clarity through real communication. And honestly, most importantly, we have to remain completely open to the very real possibility that our initial interpretation was just entirely wrong, or at least incomplete. And it's vital to emphasize here that retraining our minds to avoid these cognitive distortions, that is not just some quick mental trick you're going to learn overnight. It's both a foundational psychological tool and a really deep spiritual discipline. It takes a lot of consistent, daily practice to break that automatic cycle of anxiety and defensiveness. We have to actively choose over and over again to step out of the illusion of mind reading and really ground ourselves back in shared reality. Okay, so let's dive into the practical toolkit for this. Before you react to that unreturned text or that tired sigh from your partner, just slow down and ask yourself some clarifying questions. First, what do you actually know as a verifiable fact? Second, what are you merely assuming? Third, is it possible there's an entirely different explanation for their behavior? And finally, and this is the big one, have you spoken honestly with them about it? Walking yourself through this framework actively dismantles those cognitive distortions before they can cause any lasting damage. Here is a thought to hold on to. Assumptions close the heart around a story, but truth opens the heart to reality. Think about that. When we lock ourselves into an assumption, we isolate ourselves. We're basically building a wall, trapping ourselves inside a fictional world of our own making, where, surprise, surprise, we are the victim and the other person is the villain. But when we bravely seek the truth, even if it means having a deeply and uncomfortable conversation, we break down that wall. We keep our hearts open and deeply connected to the real world and the actual people around us. True freedom from all this self-inflicted suffering really begins when we actively make 3 vital, conscious shifts in our daily interactions. We've got to replace our rigid assumptions with genuine, open-minded curiosity. We have to replace our silent internal accusations with honest, out-loud conversations. And we absolutely must replace our reliance on surface-level appearances with a steadfast commitment to finding the actual truth. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final challenge to take into the rest of your day. How can you replace assumption with curiosity right now? Seriously, think about the interactions you're going to have right after this. The next time you feel a flash of anger or a sting of rejection because of something someone did or, didn't do, just pause. Apply those clarifying questions to your own relationships. Choose curiosity over fiction and just see how much unnecessary suffering you can prevent. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll catch you next time.